सहना ववतु सहनौ भुनक्तु सह वीर्यं करवावहै तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहै। ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः। So today we are starting a new chapter of the online classes. This chapter is the studies of the Bhagavad Gita. And why Bhagavad Gita? Because we are not taking it from the scriptural point of view. What we are trying to discuss is how it is relevant in these times. So Bhagavad Gita is from a bigger text, as you all know. So I'm not going into the history of it. I'll just cover it. And there are various books you can refer to give you the whole story of Mahabharata who don't know the story. So the whole story, and then in the Mahabharata, which is like 100,000 verses, there is in between put this Bhagavad Gita. And Bhagavad Gita was given by Lord Krishna to Arjuna when Arjuna and Krishna, both of them with their families, were going on a holiday. So they were sitting on the lawn and there was a Parijata tree, and Arjuna's children and Krishna's children, both of them were playing around, running behind butterflies. The wives were, putting the sandwiches and everything there, and these two gentlemen were resting completely quiet, peaceful, serene atmosphere. And that's where Arjuna asked this question. No, it is not that, right? Everybody knows Bhagavad Gita was right there in the battlefield. So the battlefield represents the strife and problems and agitations in life. Any knowledge which can be given right in between the battlefield, where you have to have the status of do or die, and the knowledge is so powerful that to whom it is given raises up and says, okay, I am ready to do whatever needs to be done. So the statement of Arjuna in the last is not what you want me to do, whatever needs to be done, I will do it. So that's the Bhagavad Gita. So it is relevant at all times. More so now. We'll explain it as we go ahead. The first few about these kinds of classes, the Bhagavad Gita, is these are prescriptions. When you say Bhagavad Gita, Gita means song, Bhagavat means Lord. So Bhagavad Gita means song of the Lord, song of Bhagavan, song of the divinity. So that divine principle, when it sees fit any particular individual as an equipment, then that divine music plays through that particular person and gives the knowledge for the higher state of human life. This is Bhagavad Gita. Second thing is, Bhagavad Gita is not a Hindu Shastra. Okay? Since it is the song of the Lord, it can be any person through which divinity plays through. So it is a contention when you say that who is a divine person. There are qualities given, but in these qualities you will not make out who is a divine person. It can be anybody. Who that divinity chooses to be an equipment, we have no idea. We can't tamper into that. But it chooses, and a knowledge of higher studies is given so that through this equipment, through this personality, a knowledge perpetrates to the general public of how to live life. Next, another thing, it is not a particular religion's scripture. a beautiful example, a simple example is, there was a Hindu family who was living in a village. They made a temple, a well. They dug a well. They made it beautifully. There was water there, and gave it a name called Krishna Prasad. And he made, and all the Hindus came and had to drink from the well. They did that. But then other people, so-called, whether it's Muslims or Christians or Sikhs, were not allowed. So what the Muslims decided was, there was a Muslim guy, he said, I will also make a well. And there he made a well, and he wrote there, Allah ki barakat, blessing of Allah. And he made the well. So all the Muslims came there. Then Christianity, a person who's Christian made the well, and he said the Lord's blessings. Then Sikh person made the well, and then he said Guru Nanak ka kuwa, Nanak da kuwa. And all the well, they were catering to their own communities, but the water remains the same. The content remains the same. And slowly, slowly it became compartmentalized, that this is my religion, that is yours. So you don't come into mine, I don't come into yours, don't drag us. So all these sorts of fights came up. Bhagavad Gita and the Shastra studies is way beyond that. So this is the second. It is a universal thing in approach. It has nothing to do with any other religion. It just talks. So when we are chanting the Bhagavad Gita shloka, if you are not comfortable chanting, it's all right. Focus on the content. Our job, as far as this class is concerned, is to focus on content to such a level that transformation takes place in my personality. It's as simple as that, right? So we'll start on the Bhagavad Gita concepts itself. In the Mahabharata, just a background a little bit, I'm not going too far off. The Mahabharata, there is these two brothers, Dhritarashtra and Pandu. Dhritarashtra was the elder son. Pandu was the younger. Eldest son Dhritarashtra was blind. So when he was ripe enough, age enough to become the king, some of the ministers came forth and said, how can a blind person lead the kingdom into a better place? So it is better that we don't put anybody, because when you put a blind person, so-called at that time, Netrahin, the other kingdom will see that, okay, this person, this kingdom doesn't have a viable king, so let's fight with that. So to remove that fear, they put the name of younger brother Pandu. Dhritarashtra, though he was elder, he did not raise any voice, and he just said, okay, let my younger brother rule. So Pandu ruled the kingdom. Dhritarashtra's son was Duryodhana. There were 100 children. So Duryodhana was the eldest one, so-called vicious one. And Pandu had these 5 children with Kunti and Mandri. Yudhishthir, Bhim, Arjun, Nakul, and Sahdev. These 5 children were there. Duryodhana, right from childhood, always had this thought nagging into him. And he asked his father once, Dad, you were supposed to be the king. When you are not to be the king because of your blindness, then I am the next, I am your son. So I should be the king. Why is Yudhishthir going to be the king? This nagging thought was, so who's going to be the king, Yudhishthir or me? So when Dhritarashtra said, I think so, Yudhishthir, because Pandu is the father and he's reigning over the kingdom, immediately he said, but you are the eldest and I'm the eldest son, so I should be. So this fight was there. Right from childhood, Duryodhana and 99 other brothers tried everything to destroy the Pandavas. And the Pandavas had no idea what was going on because they were too righteous. So they did not know the vicious personality of Duryodhana right from childhood. They were playing around. Eventually, they grew up. Their whole kingdom, Hastinapur, was given away to Dhritarashtra, Duryodhan. And they created another kingdom of Indraprastha. But Indraprastha was lost in a game of dice where Shakuni cheated. And they were sent, all the 5 Pandavas were sent, including Draupadi, were sent to the jungles for 12 years. And 13th year, they have to be incognito. They should not be located. If they are located, then they have to start the 12 years again. This was the story. Here, they were happy. Duryodhana actually insulted Draupadi in that parliament that everybody knows by removing her sari and all. And Krishna came there to protect her. When these 13 years were over, they were by that time so frustrated, the Pandavas, that they are the kings and rightful owners of a kingdom and they are moving around like beggars. So they all came, they sent a messenger, Krishna, to Dhritarashtra, the king. And Krishna said, these guys have come, they fulfilled your promises after 13 years. Please give them back their kingdom of Indraprastha, which they have built. So even before Dhritarashtra could say anything, Duryodhana came from there, he's standing that side. And Duryodhana said, we will not give anything. I will not give anything. So Krishna looked up at Dhritarashtra, he looked at Duryodhana and said, I am talking to the king or the king's son. So Dhritarashtra made that fatal error. He said, whatever my son says is all right. This is called Putra Moha. Whatever my son says is all right. So Krishna knew that it was useless talking to Dhritarashtra. So he turned his attention to Duryodhana and said, at least give them half a kingdom. He said, no, at least give them this. Ultimately, Duryodhana made a statement saying that I will not give them even that much land which can rest on a pin's head. Then the great Lord commanded, said, let there be war then. And the war was declared. Krishna himself had to choose a side. So he gave these options to both Arjuna as well as Duryodhana. He gave the option saying that, see, on one side is my Yadava army with all the equipments and artillery. On the other side is me alone. And I will not fight. I will not fight. Choose which one. Arjuna immediately jumped up and said, I want you. Duryodhana was more than happy, because if Krishna is not fighting and all his Yadava forces were his army improves. So he says, okay, whatever Arjun says, no problem. Arjuna chose Krishna for a simple reason. Anybody who thinks or who can think is the most dangerous person in the world. So that's the whole idea. Anybody who can think. And Krishna was the epitome of thinkers. So he came down and the war started. It was starting, the whole Bhagavad Gita, it is Mahabharata, Kurukshetra war. It was lasting to 18 days, just starting. The Kauravas had 11 battalions. Each battalion, I think, so approximately 1 lakh soldiers. I'm not very sure about it. Not important. 11 battalions. The Kauravas had 7 battalions. Okay. So the 7 battalions were trying to fight the 11 battalions. And the 11 battalions had all gurus. Great. So Arjuna was all geared up to fight. The whole Kaurava army making an arc on one side, and Arjuna and the Pandavas, a small portion of 7 battalions on the other. That's where Arjuna is sitting there. He saw the whole thing. The fight is not yet started. Now, in the capital, Dhritarashtra is sitting. Ved Vyas came to Dhritarashtra and said, listen, I am giving you Divya Drishti. Divya Drishti means divine eyes from which you can see what is going on in the battlefield. Dhritarashtra thought about it and said, I don't want those divine eyes, because he knew what's going to happen. The righteousness with Godhead by the side There is no chance of any unrighteousness surviving. I don't want. No, but you should know what's going on, because something interesting is going to happen in the war, which you should see and learn. He said, I don't want, I'm not interested. He said, okay, at least hear about it. You don't need to see it. So he gives the Divya Drishti to his minister, Sanjaya. He gives the Divya Drishti to Sanjaya. Now, 11 Akshugnis of Kauravas and 7 battalions of Pandavas represents 5 Pandavas vis-a-vis 100 Kauravas. Kauravas were 100, Pandavas were 5. So the ratio is 1:20. For every one good, righteous person, there were 20 vicious people. So many people say, wow, the war was there in Kurukshetra. Kurukshetra is still there near Chandigarh somewhere. Kurukshetra, and the Kurukshetra is there. There are all Pandits there to tell you where they are, where the water was there and all. The most important thing is the Mahabharata was written by Ved Vyasa. He wrote the whole story. If you learn the whole story and then come to Bhagavad Gita, it makes more sense. So when he wrote, Veda Vyasa is considered to be the giant intellect who consolidated knowledge from wherever it was and put it in a book form. And that is the Bhagavad Gita, Mahabharata, and in between the Mahabharata, Bhagavad Gita. Veda is knowledge. Vyasa means compiler. So Ved Vyasa means that person who collects knowledge. See, it's such a beautiful concept. It means knowledge is infinite in nature. It keeps on coming. So nobody can aggrandize the knowledge saying, this is my knowledge. I can only have the power to compile or collect a few knowledgeable quotes, knowledgeable understanding from different books and print it and then write my name or sign my name of saying, I have done this. But the fact is you have not done it. You are just a compiler. So the arrogance is not there at all that I have done it. Therefore the name Ved Vyas. Whether the Rishi was really called Ved Vyas or he was given the Ved Vyas, I have no idea. Such a person is more interested in teaching people how to live life. These great rishis who were sitting in the mighty Himalayas or living around, they exactly knew how to be happy. They had no problems. They exactly know the definition of it. But because they have done the studies. But the other common folks who are into everyday life, they had no idea how to live. Because as soon as you face a particular situation, you end up getting more and more agitated. Ultimately, the agitation leads to such a state that we are completely in a depressed state of environment. For this, to get rid of this kind of thinking, Ved Vyas had written the Bhagavad Gita. So 5 Pandavas versus 100 Kauravas represents 1:20. For every one good thought in my head, there are 20 bad thoughts. This is a ratio. And the beauty of this is ratio universal. Okay. So nobody, as soon as negative thoughts come, don't put yourself down saying, oh my God, I should not think. This is normal. The idea is who's winning. The positive thoughts are winning or the negative thoughts are winning. For every one positive thought, there are 20 negative thoughts. And the 20 negative thoughts are strong and powerful and it will win. Provided the Godhead, Lord Krishna, or in our reference, the higher values of life, which represents the buddhi catering to the higher values, if that higher values is there with that one positive person, one positive thought, then the victory 100% is of that person or that thought. There should not be any deviation. So now, exactly in this pandemic which is happening, if you see around, I think so, it started in March as far as India is concerned. So March, April, May, June, July, August, September, and they say October, November. I don't know how long it's going to start. So when we started the classes, I assumed it will be 21 days. 3 weeks should be there, pandemic. Now it's continuously going on. So the negatives have built up. Too many people are falling sick. Too many people are dying. Too many people are getting affected. Even when a COVID positive is done, the whole society is afraid. They actually shun these people, saying, oh my God, if I even go near, I will get COVID. See, that kind of fear, completely wrong. Okay, what's going on? So with this, the economy has gone down. The economy has gone down. Initially, it started with the exodus of all the migrant people. Their living state's gone. Their income is gone. Recession has taken over. Everything is negative, 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 to a level that there was a lady who told me, sir, I genuinely hope the COVID ends very fast because my husband is continuously sitting home. I want him to send to office, but that fellow is not going. It's irritating everybody. Children are regular, wife is regular, everybody in the same house doing the same thing. You can't go out, youngsters, you can't go for a drink, you can't eat anything, and you can't contact anybody. Everybody is depressed at all levels. This is where that 20 negative thoughts come up. What is the use of life? What is the use of this? What is happening? God knows what is. All these negative thoughts are there, and it will haunt you constantly, provided there is one positive thought. What is the positive thought? Whatever comes in my life, I have no control. But what to do with what comes in my life, I have complete control. Learn this. Whatever comes in my life, I have no control. But whatever comes in my life, how to deal with it, I have complete control. Such a person drives a positive thought. Why has this disease come? Why is this thing? Why am I given so much time? Because whole life, 20 years, 30 years, 40 years, 50 years, 80 years, whole life till whatever I've lived with this one concept. I don't have time. I don't have time. I don't have time. And every time the underlining mention is, I don't have time. I don't have my time to do this. I don't have my time to do this. Now, so extroverted has become our life. Extroverted means when I feel that when I do something outside, only then I can gain happiness. That thought has perpetrated so much in my life that when these items are not there, I have panicked. Nature has seen to it that none of these disturbances, so-called, which agitate you. Why are you agitated? Traffic is too much, sir. No traffic outside. Why are you agitated? That relation troubles me. Now relation is not there. You don't have to go anywhere. Socializing is really difficult. Now you're not trying to socialize. You have to just sit home. Take that one positive and put the coin, flip the coin backwards. Think from the point of view of, why has nature given me this time? And what am I supposed to do during this time given by nature? 6 months, 7 months of sitting at home. Is it possible that I eat healthy? Because I can't eat ill health, all is closed. So I have to eat healthy. Is it possible that I can eat healthy? I can physically exercise. Mentally, I can be at a better place. Intellectually, I can be more aware of what I want to do in my life. For a change, I can sit on a sofa and think about, till now, whatever life I have led is due to the dictates of everybody around me. But now, since nature has given me this time, how should I live my life? So when things open, which will open? At that time, am I geared up, prepared to face the world? Am I physically fit enough to elongate perhaps 20, 30 years more? Am I physically fit? So you, that one positivity, and with that intellect, Krishna staying with you, fix a goal in life. But don't get depressed. You have to have this thought in your mind. These things are not permanent. They are temporary. That's this beautiful poem called Even This Shall Pass Away. There was this king where all the people came and got jewels. And he had this one ring in his finger. And that ring had this beautiful quotation, even this shall pass away. So he just looked at it. He said, all this jewelry, money, even this shall pass away. Then he was fighting a war. He wedded the most beautiful woman as his queen. And then he says, mortal flesh is only clay. Even this shall pass away. Don't say it to your wife or husband when you are together. It is just to think. Automatically, the person went, there was a war. In the war, he got hurt. Pain, tremendous pain, very hard to bear. He was pierced by a javelin. And he says, pain is hard to bear. But day by day, he looked at his ring. Even this shall pass away. Then he won the war. Incognito, hidden. He went to a statue, 40 feet of statue. His statue is there, built on the street, marketplace. And everybody is praising. And then he looks at and says, glory, this is just my name. It is just takes a little while more to die. Fame is but a slow decay. Even this shall pass away. At the end, palsy, paralysis, old, ready to die, fighting his last breath and deciding and thinking, oh my God, I'm going to die. What comes next? And a heavenly ray fell on the ring and gave him a sign. Even this shall pass away. This 6 months, a year, wherever it goes, is temporary. I am not going to get depressed. I am going to get prepared. And preparation is what the studies of Bhagavad Gita is. Everything is done. All I have to know is inject the positivity inside me so that disturbances are there, depressions are there, agitations are there. Lord, give me the strength to fight it. And people, common people, they are afraid, they pray to God. Intelligent people act and they become one. The choice is yours. When we study, so even when we are studying the Bhagavad Gita, it is not time efficient. So you can't say that, sir, we are going slow, we are going fast, this verse, that verse. I'll try to combine as much as I can, but it is not a race. We are more interested here to transform people's life. And if their life can be a little better than what it was yesterday, our job is done. We'll continue next time. Thank you. Oh.